So these are the highlights. So we're going to be speaking about the expected cutoff. What did the legal reasoning section comprise of? Logical reasoning, English language, general knowledge, and the quantitative aptitude. Um, so overall, if I speak about this exam and its question pattern, so on the graph of difficulty, I think I would rate this particular question paper pattern on as at an easy level. So the all the sections, all the questions in the respective sections were at an easy to moderate level. So one who had been prepared at a basic or a moderate level could have been easily able to attempt these questions. So the expected cutoff or the expected score, so as to say, in my opinion, should remain to be same or similar as the last year for within Maharashtra as well as for outside Maharashtra students. A good score should be somewhere around 118 to 122. Within the range of this would be an expected cutoff, in my opinion. Now, when we speak of legal reasoning section or the legal aptitude section, the question pattern was as expected. So there were a few principle based or principle fact based questions. Uh, in comparison to principle fact based question, there were and yeah, so in comparison to legal principle fact based questions, more questions were based on just just give me 1 minute, yeah.
Yes. So I was saying in comparison to principal fact-based question, I could witness a lot more concept-based questions, um, which also included a lot of assertion reasoning question, static legal GK questions. So that was what the league. So I would definitely be discussing the number of questions asked under particular heads. So how many questions were asked for principal fact based? How many questions were asked for concept based? How many questions were asked for assertion reasoning based? And so on and so forth. But overall legal section looked like this, which was inclusive of principal fact-based, concept-based, assertion reasoning, and also a little bit of static legal GK. Logical reasoning, moving on to logical reasoning section. So logical reasoning section had both the type of questions, which was analytical reasoning as well as critical reasoning. So however, it was more analytical reasoning part was more dominant in this exam, which is also expected. CET or all the other exams which are which is, say for example, SLAT, etc., are definitely expected to have more of analytical reasoning section. But I personally felt that it was a little dominant over the critical reasoning side of logical reasoning section. So as you can see, logical reasoning section consisted of quite a more number of questions based on blood relations. There were questions based on statement assumptions, analogy, alphanumeric series, coding, decoding, syllogisms. So we can say we have analytical reasoning questions more in comparison to critical reasoning. Similar to legal GK, we'd be discussing the respective number of questions asked under these particular heads in a short while. Moving on to English language section, surprisingly and fortunately, of course, we had more of aptitude-based questions, and we had only one RC in this section. So there was only one RC A lot of questions on grammar, idioms and phrases, one-word substitution, synonyms, antonyms, and so on and so forth was asked. General knowledge section consisted of general science questions, ancient Indian history, geography, awards and recognitions, and dates. So even if one had prepared for a GK section at a very, very basic level, I think it was a pretty doable section, and it wasn't something which was very, very difficult. Then quantitative aptitude again can be understood as on an easy to moderate level. Yeah, so this is how your examination, or this is how that MSCET for 5-year LLB look like overall. Moving on to our sections respectively. So first we'll discuss the legal section in specific. So the legal section had 5 questions based on contract, law of contracts, and which was again based on, to be specific, which was again based on void and voidable contract, unsoundness, or which we also call as competency to contract, frustration of contract, and restraint of marriages. Now these were the topics which were spread amongst principal fact-based questions. There were also certain questions which were direct questions, or which we call as legal GK question. So in total, 5 questions out of the total were based on law of contract. Another 5 questions, another set of 5 questions was based on criminal law, which included principal fact-based question and more of legal knowledge-based question. So there were 2 questions which were based on the principle of culpable homicide and murder. However, the remaining 3 questions were based on the legal GK question as to what is referred to as parole, what is referred to as bail, and which of the following can be understood or constitutes to the offense of theft. A maximum portion of legal reasoning section was based on constitutional law. As you can see here, a total number of 13 questions were based on constitutional law, which included varied type of questions and more legal GK questions. Of course, it was again a combination of principle-based questions and legal GK question and assertion and reasoning. But I would say that again, there were a lot of legal GK questions wherein the law of constitution was taken as an aid. The questions were based on fundamental rights, the statutory authorities or bodies permitted or established under the constitutional law of India, then right to education. So if I were to give you an example, right to education was asked in a form of legal GK, that under which article it is an obligation or a mandate to the central government to provide free and compulsory education to all the children between 6 to 14. Then which of the following do not form the constitutional body? So these were the type of questions which were asked on the basis of constitutional law. Moving on to next set of questions, which is a set of 6 questions, which was based on torts law. Torts law consisted of questions on a very basic fundamental of torts, which is, you can see here, one question or few questions were based on injuria sine damnum. Of course, the principle was not so easily presented. However, it was translated into English and it was given as a principle. Then one principle was also based on the case of Gloucester Grammar School, which gave us the maxim of damnum sine injuria. Then a few questions were based on the legal GK part, which included the vicarious liability, nuisance, and negligence. Apart from contract, criminal law, constitutional law, and law of torts, a total number of 11 questions, a set of 11 questions was based on static legal GK, which included questions based on stages of crimes, the article numbers of fundamental rights, adoption, when was the constitution adopted, then number of high courts, which is the oldest high court of the country, who is the first female judge of high court, who is the first female judge of Supreme Court, which Chief Justice of India has also acted as the president. A question on international law, as the International Court of Justice and its headquarters is based at which place. So they had given the 4 options and family law. So this is how your legal reasoning section looked like. And I would again say at an individual sectional level, the legal reasoning section again can be understood as a section to have a question pattern of at an easy to moderate level. Then moving on to the next section, which is the English usage section or the English section. If I were to compare it with the legal reasoning section, I would say English section was that bit more easy, or it was easier than the legal reasoning section, since you can see that there were a lot of vocab based questions which were direct, and I can also say that the questions which were asked for such words which were also pretty easy. Say for example, what could be the synonym of instigate, or what is the antonym of abundant, and there were questions like you have to choose the antonym of one of the golden words. So such questions were more seen in this particular section. So there were 3 questions which were asked on the topic of idioms and phrases. And idioms or phrases example can be breaking the ice or benefit of doubt. These were certain questions which were asked based on idioms and phrases. So total number of 3 questions were asked on this particular topic. One RC, which was based on the topic of predicting earthquake and movement of animals, and predicting the upcoming earthquake based on all these things, and how Japan was recently able to predict an earthquake, and how this increase or decrease in the seismic activity can help one predict the earthquake. So this was the RC based on, and on this RC again 4 questions were asked, which were also very direct question, which one could easily identify just by using the hunting method. So no main idea question, no central idea question, no inference based question. So again, the RC could also be understood and comprehended easily. Then English section also consisted of a lot of questions. A total number of 8 questions were asked on grammar, which included identifying the error, spotting the error, correcting the tense, filling in the blanks with articles, and etc. Another type of question which was asked in this section was one-word substitution, and 2 questions were asked on this topic. Then a lot of questions were asked on the topics like spelling errors, synonyms, antonyms, and vocabulary. So spelling or finding the error of this in the spelling of the word. The words were also not very from a very extensive part of the vocabulary. The words were like mischievous and what is the correct spelling of jurisdiction. So it was pretty easy. And last but not the least, analogy based question was asked again, and a total number of questions asked on the basis of analogy topic was 4. So overall, if you look at the English section, you can see that it was again, I wouldn't even call this section to be a moderate one, but it was for an average person who has studied or who has prepared for a very short span, could have also could would have been in the ability to attend this section easily. Moving on, we discuss in GK section. So often we are very paranoid about this particular section, since there is so much that we need to consume in order to attend this section. However, the 9 to 11 slot for MHCET 5-year LLB had a GK section also at a very easy to moderate level. If had one stuck only to the basic level of preparation for this section, would have been really happy who was attempting this particular slot. Since 3 questions were based on general science, which we studied from 7th to 8th and 9th standard till 10th standard. Then a lot of questions were asked on the ancient Indian history, which included questions like which of the following is celebrated on the 1st May in Maharashtra. So they had given the names of the days. whether it was a Labor Day or whether it was a Maharashtra Day, and etc. So such 7 questions were asked. Then again, a set of 6 questions were asked for the geography part. Now there were questions which were mixed. So there were questions based on Indian as well as world geography. But if I were to speak of Indian, the questions based on geography were more Maharashtra specific. Example, which is the longest river within Maharashtra? So they had options that whether it is Godavari or whether it is Tapi or whether it is Bhima Nadi and so on and so forth. Then who bank is known as Yellow River or Green River. So such questions were asked on geography. Then there were questions asked based on internal and world affairs. Then the dates say, so as I just told you, or which is considered as the law day of the, when do we celebrate the law day? So the date was 26th November. Then few questions based on organizations, legal GK was also asked, and books and authors. Right. Also, there was one question that 2017 Miss World, who was crowned as Miss World in 2017. So they're given Manushi Chiller and the other options. So overall, the GK section, I believe, was at a very easy level, and one when prepared at a very basic level would have been able to attempt it. Moving on to logical reasoning section. Now, logical reasoning section, many of you must have felt it as a very exhaustive section, very lengthy section, because you can see no one particular topic has been focused on to ask a lot number of questions, but the questions were very evenly divided. Say if you look at time and work, there was one question on it. Coding, decoding, there were 3 questions. Alphanumeric series, there were 5 questions. Blood relations, there were 2 questions. Analogy, 4 questions. There's also one question which is based on puzzles. Statement assumptions, again, 4 number of questions. Linear circular arrangement, 1 question. There were again 2 questions which were asked on syllogisms. Inference-based questions were asked, a total number of 4 questions. Clocks and calendars and statement argument. So if you look closely, this particular section was exhaustive enough to have included almost all of the topics that one must have prepared under the analytical reasoning as well as critical reasoning section. So, logical reasoning, in comparison to all the other 3 sections that we discussed until now, can be understood as from moderate to difficult level, only this particular section, but again, rating it as a whole, it would still be considered as a moderate and not very difficult section. And the last section was the quantitative aptitude section. For a lot of you, this section comes across like a nightmare. However, the 9 to 11 slot for MHCT 5-year LLB quantitative aptitude section was asked at a very, very basic and easy level. So it was based on averages, divisibility, cube roots. So I remember the question for this particular topic was, what is the cube root of 729? Then there was one question on area, linear equation, time, speed, distance, ratio and proportion, and profit and loss. Only averages is one of the topic on which 3 questions were asked. However, the other topics were asked some even number of questions. So this was the overall analysis of your MNCT 5-year LLB, and the difficulty level of this exam after the analysis, I would say, would be easy to moderate, and an expected score of 18 to 122 should be there, which is quite similar to the last year cutoff. Yeah. Thank you, and if I'd be happy to answer if anyone has any questions. All right. If I have missed out on any part, and you all feel those who have taken this particular slot already, and you feel that I've missed out on any particular part, please let me know in the comment section, and I'll be happy to answer it. So thank you. We've done our part. Let's just wait for the results. Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Take care.